Today on Melanated Conversations, we amplify the voice of Karen Brown. Karen is the creator and owner of LOL Labor of Love Bakery. Karen provides custom-designed cakes, cupcakes, and other sweet treats for all occasions. Whether it's a layered or tiered cake, Bundt or sheet cake, she strives to be the bakery of choice for the DFW area. In today's chat, Karen shares her personal story of transformation from career changes and personal struggles to turning her passion of baking into a full-fledged business. Karen also shares how God's timing, her faith, and a little help from a viral social media post set things into motion for her. Listen in as we chat with Karen Brown.
Welcome to Melanated Conversations, our narrative from our perspective.
Here on the podcast, we are amplifying the voices of Black women and sharing their powerful stories of transformation.
I'm Tyrion.
And I'm Yana. Let's start the show.
To another episode of Melanated Conversations. I am your co-host, Tyrion.
And I'm your co-host, Yana.
We've got a very special treat for you guys today. I'm super excited about the guest that we have. We're interviewing Miss Karen Brown of Labor of Love Baking Company. This is going to be so much fun. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. Yana, you got anything else to say real quick before we?
No, I'm excited. Y'all already know I talk about this all the time. I love food. I love to eat. And yes. I've been one of the fortunate ones to partake in our special guest today's treats.
Yes.
So I'm glad that we have her on the show. So welcome, Karen.
Yes, welcome, Karen.
Yay. Thank you.
I've heard all of the wonderful things about your treats. I cannot wait to get my hands, my mouth on the goodness, okay? But without further ado, y'all know how we do. We always start with a round of rapid fire questions. Yana and I will participate in this, Karen, as well. So
awesome.
Are you
I'm ready? Yes,
right.
I am.
Take it away, Yana.
Well, first question I have, since we're talking about treats and cakes and cookies and everything in between, I have to ask this question. Would you rather give up cake forever or ice cream forever?
Oh, that's easy. I give up ice cream forever. I don't eat ice cream.
Oh, you don't eat ice cream at all?
Well, I guess I've grown out of it. I used to eat ice cream as a kid, but it wasn't like my ultimate favorite, like die-hard food that I had to have. Cake was always at the top. If you had a scoop of ice cream on the side, it had to be strawberry for me. But that's about it. I don't even eat ice cream now as an adult. I don't even buy it.
Wow. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Is it me next? Can I answer? Oh gosh. Okay. Because I love ice cream. I love chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream because I'm a cookie dough fanatic.
Yes.
And I know they tell you not to eat the cookie dough, but I love me some cookie dough.
You gotta eat the cookie dough. What?
Okay, thank you. No. Karen, it's official. Karen says we gotta eat the cookie dough, then we gotta eat the cookie dough. Okay.
Look, that's one of my top 5 as a child was because I would just take the cookie dough out of the ice cream.
Yes.
No, you got to eat the cookie dough.
Okay, good to know. I'm going to say, man, because I feel like you still just have a better variety of cakes and things. So I'm going with cake.
You giving up?
No. I'm giving up ice cream. Plus ice cream, even though I do love ice cream, but me and ice cream have a love-hate relationship, especially when it comes to my stomach. So cake. I'm eating cake. I'm giving up ice cream. Yeah.
Well, I'm stuck in the middle. I don't want to choose. This comes from the person who my aunt Carolyn, who my friends refer to as Aunt Cake. She used to always bake me or make me ice cream cakes because I love them both so much equally.
Fair.
I don't know. I couldn't choose, but I mean, oh gosh. I mean, but cake is more I'm going to go with cake only on the basis because it's more accessible and
Yeah.
I want to say durable. That's not the word, but you can eat it at any time. You can save it. Ice cream you can't just have sitting out. Cake,
Right.
you can keep your bit, but but I need a little cake with my ice cream and look.
Right.
I feel you. I feel you.
Right.
So we making choices here. These are hard choices. These are hard life decisions.
But Karen, you make cake, so I'm gonna roll with cake today.
Good
Three for cake. All right. Let's do one more round. Okay.
Mhm.
My next question. Would you rather lose your sense of taste or your sense of smell?
Oh, wow. You kind of, that's a weird question because actually they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I'd have to say taste. No, I'm sorry. I would rather lose my sense of smell.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the fact that there are, well, no, because it goes both ways. I was going to say I don't have to smell the stuff that smells nasty, but if I know what I'm eating, I know what it's supposed to taste like, and I will still enjoy it. For your first sense to draw you in is your sense of smell, and then the taste follows. But if I'm only eating stuff that I know how it tastes, especially if it's stuff that I make, I'm good with just tasting it. I don't have to smell it.
Boom.
If you're sick and your nose stuffed up, you ain't smelling nothing. So you still have to rely on your sense of taste.
That is true.
To enjoy it. So yeah, I think I would rather lose my sense of smell.
Okay.
Yana,
what you say?
I stand with Karen. I don't want to lose either.
Mm-hmm.
But I would probably go the same route. I'd rather lose my sense of smell.
Yeah.
So I can't smell them fresh baked cakes and cookies.
But you know what they taste like.
When you put it in your mouth,
you know what it tastes like.
Because it's something about like it heightens more of what's going on in your body when you taste it. Because it goes into your mouth, you chew it, you savor it. There's more enjoyment when you taste. The smell is just the initial get you there, but that taste. Listen here. I haven't eaten yet, so y'all.
Yes. I love it. All right, yeah, I'm right there with y'all. Even though they go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. But if I'm going to lose one or the other, I guess I'm going to have to forego being able to smell anything. I'd rather be able to taste it all day long. Mm-hmm. So I'm going with taste. I'm going to keep my sense of taste. That's it.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for playing along, Karen.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we're actually going to segue into the reason why we have you here.
Yes.
We want to hear more about you and labor of love and all the great work that you're doing. And I just want to, I'm excited to learn more about, how you got started in, the business that you're doing and just sharing your story as an entrepreneur. So kind of as we kick things off, can you share a little bit first about, you? What's your origin story? Who is Karen Brown?
Who is Karen Brown? All right. Well, gosh, I don't want to make this a long story. So just a snapshot. I was born and raised in New York City to be exact, back in the 70s. I always say I love that time period just because, and not any reflection on where we're living now, but back then it was all more about family, meaning that, I did grow up the beginning part of my life with a 2-parent home. I have a younger brother. He's only about 15 months younger than I, so I'm the oldest. And it was just cool times. Like I actually was listening to the last podcast y'all posted. I'm really bad about taking time to really look at things. So I happened to be listening to it right before I came on. And one of the questions was about what would you do if you, what the rapid fire question was, would you rather be by yourself for a year or stuck by yourself with your kids with nothing, no modern things to do and stuff like that, or to entertain them? So I really thought about that question, and I was like, I'm at that age where, and I don't know if it was you, Terry, or Yana, that mentioned about, the different, or I think actually the person you interviewed mentioned about the different games we used to play growing up. And those are the kinds of things that came to mind. I almost got nostalgic. I'm like, look, I grew up in the inner city. So we used to play tag. We used to play, hide and go seek, freeze, all these, like, they were probably just made up games that just to keep us motivated. And they were always involved being outside and active. Mm-hmm. So like when I think about my childhood, I don't remember a whole lot of details, but I remember those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And some days, even at my age now, I wish we could go back to some of those simpler times.
Yeah.
And so, so growing up was really about more of that family connection. Also growing up, I spent a lot of time with my grandmother and my great grandmother. And so with those two powerful women in our family, they kind of instilled what comes out of me today. My great grandmother actually was a baker. And I used to love watching her, be in the kitchen, period. I used to be at the end of the counter on a little high chair or whatever and just watch, because I was always too little to participate or, to help and be hands-on. And my grandmother was just such a joy to be around. I miss her even to this day. She passed back in the 80s. So that's where I think it all started for me when it came to the love of baking. My grandmother actually was a cook, not so much a baker. So, I kind of got both sides because I do love to cook, but I prefer to bake. And then, of course, growing up, I spent a lot of time around my grandfather, which for me and my generation was kind of rare because he worked all the time. My grandmother never worked. And so she was an at-home mom, raised 7 kids. So I have, 7 aunts and uncles. Well, no, 6. One is my mother, obviously. So, I got a chance to really spend a lot more time around him. And he actually picked up the baking side. My grandmother didn't, but he did because he spent a lot of time with my great grandmother, and that was like his heart. And so, because I don't think he was really close to his side of the family, so he kind of took on a lot of the stuff from my grandmother's side. So with him, he used to make homemade pound cakes all the time, and like I didn't. It was either with ice cream. Somebody was talking. Oh, Yana, you were talking about the ice cream. I remember my grandfather used to make just regular traditional pound cake at any chance he'd get. He'd always have one in the house. And my grandmother had the idea of taking. We used to buy the ones in the paper carton. Breyers still does it a lot, and I think that's the brand we used to eat all the time. She would take it and she would cut slices of ice cream so they look like how it's almost shaped like a loaf because it's that rectangular shape. Yeah. So she would cut it in rectangles and she would scoop it out and put it between 2 slices of pound cake. Man. And I'm telling you, I was just like in total heaven. Was like the best combo. You got homemade pound cake and your favorite flavor of ice cream, like a loaf size slice in between. It was like it was heaven in a bowl. I was just like, this is life for me. And that's the kind of stuff I remember growing up. So we ended up leaving New York when I was 13. We moved to Orlando, Florida. That's actually where I spent the majority of my life. Went through high school and all of that good stuff and college there. But while I was there, I always liked to start making my own cake. So when I was little, I actually got a chance to, start making my own cakes as a kid. But my mom wasn't really into the from scratch kind of deal. And I didn't have any recipes or learn how to do any of that until much later. So mine was actually box cakes, that I started with doing it in a bowl and, just mixing it up by hand, old school, really. It wasn't until we moved to Florida. I was a teenager, obviously, at this time. And I think it was when I was 15 or 16. I always say 16. I think it was 16. My mom bought me my first KitchenAid. So that was, and I actually still have it to this day, and it still works. So plug in for KitchenAid. That was my first, yeah, right. So my first introduction to really like taking it serious. And that's when I started doing different recipes, and I think one of the questions you guys had on the email was about, how did I, what kind of recipes? Was it something passed down or something I created? At this point in time, my mind doesn't work that way. I can be totally honest with that. I just always used to love trying different recipes and cookbooks. So I have a library of cookbooks that I use as references. I think as I grew to learn more about baking, I ended up, just tweaking things as you learn. Like my grandmother was really good at researching, how to work recipes in your favor. So there's different hacks that there are out there for those that cook and bake. For baking, it's, what you have to have at room temperature, this and that. Temperature is a big thing for baking. Measurement is huge for baking because it's just like chemistry. It's just everything has to be perfect to the point to get that perfect cake, that perfect texture, all of that moisture, all of that good stuff. So my grandmother used to print out like different things and different recipes for me and have little indexes at the bottom, like you must do this, if you want it to turn out like this, you have to do this. So she was really good about that. So a combination of all those things kind of got me to where I was baking all the time, just trying different recipes. And I love cake. So, and I'll try any flavor, any combination. I look at different cooking shows or baking shows and see what other people are doing. And it's like, oh, I wonder how I could do that. And if it's something that I like to eat, I want to try to make it myself. So that's kind of all the little tidbits of who I am and how, I was brought up to kind of get to this point and my love for baking.
Awesome.
When did you move to Texas?
Okay. So I would say, let's see. So in a nutshell, I had gotten married in 2004. I was only married for 4 years. I had separated from my now ex-husband in 2008. By then, while I was married, my mother, actually, let me put this back. My mother moved to Texas in 2003, the year I got engaged. And of course, she was, we've never actually lived apart, like in a different state. We were always in the same area. Mm-hmm. But of course, I was dating and gotten serious with a guy at the time that she was thinking about moving. So she, God uprooted her from Florida and moved her to Texas. I'm like, what? Mm-hmm. Like, why Texas? We didn't have any family there. I think I had a godmother who was living in Texas at the time, but that was it. And so, but she felt led to move there. And this was the year I had actually got engaged. So she looked at me and she was like, I want you to come with me. I'm like, are you crazy? Mm-hmm. And then of course I'm in this relationship and for me to even consider that type of thing, I was like, I have somebody else that's in my life right now. So at that time, that answer was a no. So I got married the next year. Marriage lasted about 4 years. In 2008, I separated from my ex-husband. And guess where I ended up?
Texas.
Right here. Yep. I packed up whatever I could pack up in my car. I didn't have much money because I was in between jobs at the time too. So I didn't have much saved and I didn't have much income. And it was one of those things where it was just time for me to just leave. And, I did what I had to do as far as praying. We went through counseling and all that, not to get into that part. But the end story was that God was able to remove me from that situation. It wasn't harmful or anything, but it just wasn't what he had for me or for him. And so I got in my car, packed up. It took me 2 days, but I ended up in Texas on the 27th day of November, 2008. It was Thanksgiving Day, and I'll never forget it because Thanksgiving is a big holiday for me. I love Thanksgiving because it's that family holiday that nothing else matters but being with family. Mm-hmm. And if food is involved and dessert table is involved, that's all that I'm all about it. but I totally missed Thanksgiving that year. Because by the time I got into Texas and my mom was living in Plano at the time. I got in at about 7-ish, 8 o'clock-ish that evening. So I had totally missed the holiday. And so it was a very traumatic moment for me. I cried the whole time here, driving here, and I drove by myself, which I had never done in my life. And I love to drive, but that I had never done before. So I drove by myself, took 2 days because I stopped and stayed overnight in Alabama, I believe, and then continued the next day. And I ended up coming here. And I've been here ever since. It's been going on 11 years now. So.
So I'm curious to know, once you made that transition here to Texas, what was life like for you? Because that's a huge, like, not having family except for your mom here at this point. You really being connected to family and all those things, and then you're going through a divorce and all of that. Like, what was that transition like for you before you started to transition into the Labor of Love Baking Company?
Okay. So just a quick background. I actually, so as far as job wise, when I went to college, when I was living in Florida, I graduated from University of Florida with a Bachelor's of Arts degree with Spanish as a second language. Now, there's no real big story behind that. It was just how I can graduate and get out of school. It was that kind of, situation, because I actually went to college going pre-med. I've always had a passion for healthcare and getting into that field. But when I was in school, I just wasn't focused enough to follow it through. So I changed my major, like not even halfway through. It was a little more than halfway through. I had to change my major. And so the only thing I can think of at that time with making a rash decision was I loved the Spanish language. And growing up around it, starting from my time in New York, and I was always around, people, Latin people. So I love the music, the food, the language, all of it. And so when I was in college, I changed my major to Spanish as a second language. And I was able to complete my coursework and everything and graduate back in 96. And so from there, I didn't know what I wanted to do, because changing it, I really had no thought as to what I was going to use it for. I thought, well, maybe I can go into teaching, but I never really considered, coursework leading into education. I thought about being an interpreter, but I'm like, but in what fashion, what area? There's so many different industries and stuff like that. So it took me a minute to figure out what I wanted to do. So the first thing I did was I went into the food industry, since that is part of my passion, whether it's cooking or baking. At the time, that passion wasn't really defined, because I love to cook as well. So my first job out of college was working for Disney. I worked in their food and beverage department. I even became a trainer and everything. And more, I started to, really try to decide, maybe I should go into cooking, which is totally unrelated to anything I went to school for. So it just kind of boggled my mind that, okay, this is what's happening now. So I worked for Disney for a few years. That was a great experience. After Disney, I actually went into working for a couple of other restaurants, and actually they were high profile restaurants. So the first restaurant I ended up working for was Wolfgang Puck's. He had a restaurant on Disney property. And so I worked for his restaurant for about 3 years. And the funny thing was about that's how I got introduced to baking for a living. I actually worked in the pastry department in that restaurant and was under not a high profile chef. I think she is now, because she's got her own show and all of that. He had a pastry chef at the time that was really had no problem pouring into those that worked under her. And so I worked for her the last year and a half or so that I was there, and really got some good teaching and guidance on being a baker, and different things that you can make and stuff like that, because she had such a passion for it as well. So I think that's where it kind of spurred on. After I left Wolfgang, I worked for Emerald's. His restaurant, he had opened up at Universal Studios. So I left Disney property and went to Universal Studios and worked for Emerald's for it was almost under a year. I wasn't there very long. So I was actually in school at the time. Because in the between trying to work and all of that and figure stuff out, I actually went back to school. I ended up going to school for medical assisting. So while I was doing that, I was working for Emeralds. So once I graduated and got my degree, I got an AS degree in medical assisting. I actually came out of food and went into healthcare. It was one of the best decisions of my life because I totally loved it. And I was like, I knew that this is where I was supposed to be. So I was a medical assistant in Florida for almost 5 years. And at that time, probably in the 5th year, I was starting to, I guess, feel like I needed something more or something different. Not necessarily out of healthcare, but I wanted to find ways to make more income because I was married at the time. We were having financial issues and stuff like that. And I had actually transitioned out of healthcare for a minute to work for a business consultant. Because, you know, at that time, people were trying to be entrepreneurs. So they were like, oh, well, you can, you know, have your own thing. You can sell insurance. You could do this. You can do that. And so I was interested in learning more about it. So I had a little taste of that, but that didn't pan out at all. So I'm like, okay, this was a wrong turn. But, you know, I learned some things. So in trying to transition back into healthcare, that was my transition period where I wasn't working. But that was also the same year me and my husband had major issues and it wasn't working out. And I had to pray about what my next move was. And so that's when God uprooted me and moved me to Texas. And of course, I wasn't working. So I come here to Texas. And that first year was a challenge because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. I'm in a new state that have different rules. So in trying to even look at, you know, I tried to go back into medical assisting here in Texas. But of course, the requirements of what's you are needing to actually work in the state of Texas was very different than Florida. And so I would have had to get certified here in this state. And my mind was just not where I needed it to be to study and take that certification test here. And so I ended up getting a job at Walgreens. It's my first job here. Because I'm like, my dad was like, look, you need a job. You're not making any money. Because I was being particular about where I wanted to work.
Yeah.
You know, like I was being like, well, I got to be in this field or I got to be in this. But every time I applied for medical assisting jobs, of course, that requirement about being certified kept closing the door on me. I'm like, man, I really don't want to do this. Which I knew I had to. I just didn't have the motivation to do it. So I ended up working at Walgreens. It was close to where I was living. And started working there as a head photo tech. Now, I must tell you, my store manager at the time, he was, you know, military, you know, man, you know, real hard, real structured and everything. And everybody was scared of him until I came along. Everybody used to warn me. You're like, you have to beware of this man. He's so hard. He's so tough. I said, okay, all right. I took heed to what people said, but I realized that, you know, it's his temperament. It's how he runs his store. And if you do what he tells you to do, you know, you'll do fine. And so I had no problems with my store manager. But when I was being interviewed by him, we had a long conversation and he was just trying to get to the bottom of where I was at that time. You know, where my mind was at, because he looked at my resume and he was like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I don't know. I need a job. So, you know, I told him my aspirations. I still wanted to get back into healthcare at some point. And so that's when he started talking to me about pharmacy. And he was like, you know, you're more apt for that, but, you know, I don't have any openings for that right now. And I was like, look, I'll take whatever you have for me. And so he had a position open in the photo tech department. I started there. I actually became head photo tech there while I was there. And then with him putting that seed in about pharmacy, I said, well, let me look into that and see. And sure enough, you know, I caught the bug and I'm like, that's still healthcare. And that's something that's interesting to me. So I was like, let me look more into it. And so it happened at that time, Walgreens helped people study for the test to be a certified pharmacy technician. So I went through the program. I actually passed the test on the first time around and they helped pay for it and everything. And so I became a registered pharmacy tech in training. Now here I am faced with, okay, so now I'm in Walgreens store. I asked my store manager, I was like, hey, can I still stay at this store and possibly do my training here? Well, he did the best that he could, but he really didn't have any positions open. And around this time, this was actually right after 9/11. And so, of course, the financial climate and economy changed at that time. So Walgreens, just like any other business or company at that time, was going through major changes. And they were making cuts and laying off and, restructuring their business model and hierarchy of positions because, the economy was such in a bad shape that if you weren't going to close and claim bankruptcy, you had to make, certain budget cuts and stuff like that. So right at the time I finished and got registered as a pharmacy technician, Walgreens restructured and had a hiring freeze for one, and two, they were limiting, as far as positions for pharmacy technicians. So I had no choice but to leave. So I was a pharmacy technician for a couple of years, worked for different pharmacies. And the last pharmacy I worked at, I won't say the last one. So let me say I worked for 2 different pharmacies while I was a pharmacy technician. Well, to get back to the question about baking, there's always potlucks whenever you're in like a call center environment, because I left retail and went into a call center environment for my pharmacy career. Okay. And so every potluck I was making something. And so, of course, anytime people had a list going around, everybody would sign up for everything else. And there would probably be nothing, barely for desserts. If it was, people was like, they're bringing cookies or cupcakes or whatever. And I noticed that people kept buying store-bought stuff. I'm like, y'all, this is nasty. So I started making cakes for the potlucks. I started making cakes. And so like after a while, it got known that I was making cake. Now, at the time, I was still kind of delving in box cake at the time. I wasn't doing it from scratch yet. But it didn't matter because people couldn't believe how good it tasted. So I was like, okay. So I kind of steered away from it and was kind of trying out different recipes. So it started off one with a banana pudding cheesecake.
Oh,
I had made it one time. Yeah, I know, right? I had made it because cheesecake actually, and it'll probably be a question on here, so let me answer it now. So I'd have to say cheesecake is my ultimate favorite dessert. It is my weakness. And coming from New York,
up in my chair when you said that.
Cheesecake is my favorite dessert of all time.
So let's talk about it. Not to cut you off. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So thank you for sharing that and, sharing that whole journey because, although I like the fact that you shared it all, not just like, you worked in the food industry for some time and, your path diverted a little bit, but it was still something that was aligned with, I guess it's this thing of, we have to be open to kind of what God has lined for us. And it may not sometimes look like this straight line thing. So it's interesting how even like different things that played into the dynamic of your story, how it all cultivated to, you getting to this space now, which is, let's talk about these blessed hands that you have. I know you were getting ready to kind of allude to some of the cakes that you started. One in particular, the red velvet cheesecake, which y'all, I'm gonna let her talk. I'm gonna let you talk.
I'm gonna let y'all finish.
I just want to let the people know that just can make y'all. I'm over here thinking about she made a cake for my mother-in-law for her birthday. Her birthday was Valentine's Day, but we celebrated a week prior. And first of all, Karen was so gracious. I called her the week of because we put this party together kind of last minute, and I was just like, I need a cake, and she got on it within 2 or 3 days. She turned this around for me.
Wow!
And when I say y'all. Like I'm not lying. Like that cake, everybody at the party, And I'll have my family, to chime in the comments or to give feedback because they were just like, oh my gosh, hey, like where did you find her?
when Yana was telling me about your cakes the other day, and I was like, my mouth is over here drooling. I'm upset. I have not had any of these cakes yet. Why have I not known about Karen? Like, what in the world? I'm looking through your website. I'm like, every cake looked delicious and moist. And I was like, I need this in my life right now. Oh my goodness. So I have not even tasted your cakes yet. And, your work speaks for you. Clearly speaks for you.
It speaks.
Thank you.
Man.
I'm very upset right now that I have not had it.
I'm just saying, y'all don't want to lose your sense of taste because when I say you became family that day. They were like, we don't know her, but she family. She invited all our.
I felt it too when I delivered the cake. I felt it totally.
My mother-in-law was so happy, and she loved the cake, and she lives in Arkansas. And we had a little, surprisingly, we had some cake left over. Actually, she had cut some pieces in the middle. She was like, well, everybody's talking. I'm about to put some cake to the side because I need to come back home with me. And they left and they forgot the cake. And they were outside of Greenville, which is probably like, 45 an hour.
Yeah.
Did she turn back?
No, she was begging to turn around, but they didn't turn around.
Oh no!
Like, I just need you to please just freeze the cake until we come back. Just freeze the cake. I was like, Mom, we'll have Miss Karen make you another cake. It's okay.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
Man. Oh. Yes. So speaking of the red velvet cheesecake, that actually was going to be the next thing. So that was a good lead in. Thank you, Yana. Because after the banana pudding cheesecake, it actually where a coworker, after tasting it for me making it as a potluck, ordered one for the team that she was on. And she offered to pay for it. And I was like, no, I'll just make it. Because it wasn't about the money for me. It was just, that's what I love to do. And so, but she wouldn't have it. So she gave me money for the supplies and everything. And I made her a cake and she shared it with her team. Well, then I had another coworker who asked me for a red velvet cheesecake. I actually had not made one for this group before, but that's what she requested. So I was like, okay, let me put this together. So of course I do my research when it comes to recipes and things that people ask me to make, because that's basically how the whole business is run. Really, pretty much most of the stuff that you see on the website is something somebody requested me to make. And so I had to figure out how to put it together. I don't necessarily like to copy anybody. So a lot of the stuff that I do, I'll look and research. I'll take different recipes and see what different people used. And then I come to decide, okay, well, I don't like to use this ingredient. Let me switch it out and do. So I won't necessarily say I create recipes, but I modify them to the things that I like to use and how I like my cake to come out based on my practice and how I've done different recipes. So with the red velvet cheesecake, the cheesecake is kind of simple to make. And then I think a lot of it, why my stuff may taste different than somebody else's, is what you put in it. And I'm not just talking ingredients. I think if you have patience, if you have love for what you do and passion, all of that comes out into what you create. And so that's the only way I can describe why, you can eat my red velvet cheesecake and be like, OMG, but Cheesecake Factory makes the same cake. It may not be the exact same recipe, but putting it together, it's the same thing. And I had one of my best friends say, yeah, no, yours is nothing compared. So I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I don't know why, but it's just, that's what it is. And then I've just come to know that no two bakers are the same,
Yeah.
So you can do the same recipe exactly the same and it'll come out totally different. So what ended up happening, that coworker who ordered the red velvet cheesecake, I think I was off that day because I was still working. I was off that day, but I delivered it to her at the job because she didn't live close. So the job was kind of in between. So I dropped it off for her and I told her, keep this in the refrigerator. Do not open it. I get home. My phone started blowing up. I said, what is going on? I had like at least 20 plus notifications that I had gotten on Facebook. So I go on Facebook. A mutual coworker of ours created a post with a picture of a slice of cake on a plate. And I can't remember if she probably had a picture of the whole cake and then a picture of the slice. And she tagged me in the post. The reason why my phone blew up is because she tagged me stating that I had made this particular cake. She had forced the coworker to cut her a slice because she wanted to try it. She took a picture and that was all she wrote.
Wow.
Everybody was commenting on the post. Oh my God, save me a slice. I want that cake. Blah, blah, blah. So, and this was back in, what is this? It was 16. Yeah, I think it was 2016. Something like that.
Wow.
No, I think it was 2016 and November. And this was like a week or two before Thanksgiving when this post came up. And of course, everybody was going crazy over this cake and over this picture. So of course, me being tagged, she kept saying, you need to hit up my girl. You need to hit up my friend, blah, 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 blah. She makes it, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I ended up, since people were actually reaching out to me to make one, I had to make a decision. So and I'll just put this out there because it's not a secret. So the girl that originally ordered it wanted to pay me for the cake as well. I kept telling her no. She was like, no, I'm paying you for this cake and you're taking this money. I said, okay, fine. So she was like, cause you gotta, buy the supplies and everything. I said, okay, fine. So she gave me $20 for me to make the cake. And it was a standard 8-inch size. So I made the cake. She gave me $20, blah, blah, blah. So here we are on Facebook with this post. I said, okay, if this many people want it, I said, with Thanksgiving coming up, I said, I will put it to the test. I said, I offered to make it for anybody for $20. Mm-hmm. I made 20 of them for Thanksgiving.
Wow.
That's how many requests I got at $20 a pop because people was like, you crazy. $20 for this cake? Now, I later went on to Cheesecake Factory because they're my reference since they actually make that cake. Mm-hmm. They charge close to $40 for that cake, almost 50, depending on the size for that cake. I was charging $20 for the same size. So, of course, everybody flocked in and I prayed and I was like, okay, God, if this is all you, I said, please guide me on this because I needed to be somewhat professional about it because I wasn't running a business at the time. That may not be good to admit at this point, but that's what it was.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it made sense because if it wasn't a business, me charging $20 was not, was just to cover the materials for me to make it. Mm-hmm. And so, I ordered packaging. I ordered, did I have a label? I think I might have even created a label of some kind to put on top of it and everything like that. And I pumped out 20 plus of those for Thanksgiving. And then a few trickled in after, some for Christmas that same year. So I told God, I said, if we pull this off, if I can actually see me doing this, I said, I will do something more with it. Because everybody kept telling me, oh, you should create a business. You should start a business. You're so good. And I would just chuck it up. And this had been happening for years that people would tell me this. And I would just put it at the back of my mind. Oh, that's not what I want to do. I love to bake. That's all. But for some reason, this time was like that time, because it was not my desire to create a business. It was his. It was his to say, this is what I want you to do. And that red velvet cake started it.
Well, and I was going to ask you if you ever had a desire to ever start a business, which that's
no,
crazy.
Ma'am.
Especially seeing how like, and Yana kind of alluded to this earlier, where you see like the kind of the full circleness of it, right? You're in Florida and then you're working for Disney and you're getting access to all these different big names, Emerald and Wolfgang, and you're getting this experience, not even knowing down the line you would have your own.
Right,
it would come right back, and how God was prepping you for this very moment. And you kind of already started sharing with us about your transition, but was it like after the whole Thanksgiving red velvet cheesecake post viralness, was that like the moment, like after that moment it was like, okay, like this has been successful, I think for sure, like I want to go ahead and go in this direction. And then the follow up to that is, then how was that transition? Going from working, you were in the call center, yeah?
Yes.
Working in a call center to going and working for yourself. And then how has that experience been for you?
Oh my goodness. So for the first part of the question, I had asked God to show me clearly during the viralness part of it, because I didn't understand why it was happening at that particular time. But because it was, I'm like, okay, God, you're going to have to help me here, because, I felt a sense of excitement and motivation with just even that part happening and being able to even pump out that much. And one, have the quality be the same in each one. And, because I wanted to keep it intimate and personal, because for me, when it comes to baking, it's more than just making a cake, because it has to do with the person that I'm making it for, my passion for baking in general, but the person that I'm making for is involved in how the cake comes out, because it's a part of them in the cake. It's not just my creativity or whatever comes out of me. It's my relationship with the person. And it could be a total stranger. But what I had tried to do was learn something about that person. And not to be stalkish, but like on Facebook, there are people who reach out to me on Facebook to request a cake, and they don't know me from Adam. They just see my post and they visit my business page. But when a person approaches me, I do my research. I look at the person's profile. I look and see, what we're working with, because if I don't know you personally, it's hard for me to create something that is for you, because the cake should not really just reflect me, and reflects the person that's ordering it, or for who it is ordered for. So, with everything as far as the transition, me pumping out that many cakes at one time, God showed me that I could do it, because I didn't know what I was capable of until I actually did it. Yeah. So it wasn't until like a couple of weeks. So that was Thanksgiving. So 3 weeks after that, I'm sitting here trying to think of a name for the business. Like I followed my promise, because I told him, if I pull this off, I will do whatever you want me to do. And if it was to create a business surrounding my passion for baking, I told him I promised I would do it. And the fact that I was able to do that with the red velvet cheesecake and pump them all out in order and organize myself, I said, oh, geez. Yeah. So I kept my promise. And, I went through the process of creating the name, which my sister friend helped me with, because she's better with words. Nothing I created actually was everything I thought of, somebody already had. Yeah. So here's my sister friend. She goes, this is how the name came about. She told me, write down, how you feel about baking. Like how does it make you feel, and all this, trying to get, I guess ideas from me as far as what she can try to put together. So I did. I gave her a little blurb. I just told her about my passion, how long I've been baking and how it started. And she came back to me and she was like, this is what I came up with. And she had like LOL, and then she had in parentheses labor of love and bakery and all this. And I said, OMG. I said, and then what hit me was, back then, granted, it's not that many years ago, but it's enough that I started using abbreviations on Facebook. And my favorite one is LOL. Ah. And so for her to come up with that, I was like, that's it. And then, of course, with LOL, labor of love, it all goes together. Yeah. So I just put it all in one. So it's LOL, Labor of Love Bakery is the full name of the business. And I couldn't have come up with anything better than that, because it sums up everything that involves my passion and love for it. And people, when they taste the cake, they even say, looking at the name, they're like, yeah, we can see that. So, and of course, when I started it, name and went to the, city clerk and got all my paperwork done. I was still working full time. So I did not transition fully because it was just starting. I had no idea how I was really beginning. So it was kind of a day-to-day thing. So I'm here working full time as a pharmacy tech still in a call center environment and trying to see how this business was going to run. I didn't have any education as far as business and anything. So I really had to buckle down and, look online and, really gather up some resource material to try and figure it out. But of course, the first 3 years while I was working and trying to do the business, it basically ran with people just requesting things. So after the red velvet cheesecake, I believe it was a Oreo cake that was requested. So that ended up on the menu. And then the next thing was the crazy strawberry shortcake cheesecake, the one with the crumbles on the outside. That was another one. So people ask me, well, how does it, people just, they tag me and post, hey, can you make me this? Oh, okay. I'll make my rendition of it. Like I tell people, I said, I don't copycat if I can help it, unless that's what you want me to do. But most of the time it always comes out in labor of love fashion. however God gives it to me, that's how you get it.
I love that the people make suggestions like, hey, can you make me this? And you're like, I'll see what I can do and throw something.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
That's the bulk of it. I mean, and then year 3, to answer the second part of the question, my last job as a pharmacy technician, I love my job. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't that I was stressed or anything, even though I think towards the end I pretty much was. But it wasn't anything that I wasn't willing to do, because I still have a passion for healthcare and for people in general. So I think I knew that I was where I wanted to be at that time. But I think it was like end of September, early October, I came back from a trip that I usually take for my birthday month. I went back to work and I realized that things weren't the same. Like it was like night and day from the time before I went on my trip and then I came back. I'm stepping into my workplace. It wasn't the same. Like I didn't feel the same about it. I came in the first day and I walked in, clocked in. And I'm like, dude, I'm going to go home. I don't want to be here. And that was the weirdest feeling for me, because I had never felt that way about my job ever. And for me to have that bad taste in my mouth sort of thing, for lack of better words, I had to be like, okay, God, what's going on? Because now that, I'm coming back, maybe I was seeing things differently for a reason, whatever God intended caused me to, he was like, it's time to go. And I'm like, man, stop. What are you talking about? He was like, it's time to go. And so every time I went into work, I felt something different. I felt like something's not right. Like things weren't gelling. I didn't have the same attitude at work. Like, I love what I do, but just being in the environment was just like, no, I got to go. And so it was like a week after I got back from my trip, I was already back at work. I think that after a week, that weekend, I had the worst breakdown I'd ever had. And I was boohoo crying, eyes red shot, the whole 9, screaming and yelling in my apartment. And there's nobody here. And I'm surprised the cops weren't called, because I was yelling at the top of my lungs. I'm like, what is going on? Wow. I said, I don't know what to do, because I kept getting sense that I was supposed to do something, but I was fighting it so hard, because I'm like, this is not what I know. What are you talking about? And, when things started calming down and I could start seeing clearly, it was just like, boom, boom, boom. This is what I want you to do. This is when I want you to do it. Like literally, he gave me the date that I was going to leave my job. He told me I need to put in my 2 weeks. This is what we're going to do. And I was like, OMG. I was like, gosh. And, God speaks in different ways and in different ways to different people. And for me, it's always been where he has to confirm in multiple ways, or just give you peace about things, or he'll just drop something in your spirit and you just kind of know. And it's hard to describe if people have never experienced God speaking to them in some way. So all I can say is that, like, the dates were made clear. He told me exactly what to do. I even reached out to my mom and my dad, and then my close circle of friends, and just told them just to pray, because I'm like, I don't know what God is doing right now. I just know that there's a shift about to happen. Next thing you know, I put in my 2 weeks. My last day came, and then I made the official announcement a couple of days after I left my job to say that I was a full-time entrepreneur. And it's been a journey ever since. And that was actually in December. It was around the anniversary time of the business that I made the announcement that I went full time. So that was a little over a year ago, starting year number 4. So it's man, the transition was hard, just because, like I said, I didn't have a desire for me creating a business to begin with. So now the business has started because God was like, this is what I want you to do. And it was very fulfilling, but I knew that I still wasn't where I needed to be to really run this thing. And now you want me to go full time? It's like, I wasn't ready. I knew I wasn't ready from a natural standpoint. Like, you know how there are people who are entrepreneurs now that kind of teach and mentor and tell you, you should have this, you should have that. I had nothing that I should have had to start this business full time. And I mean nothing. All I had was the fact that people wanted to order cake from me. That is about it. And so, going full time was really challenging because it was a lot of things I need to kind of just, step back and put in place before it continued to grow so much that I couldn't handle it. So from a business aspect, I'm playing catch up, but God is teaching me through the whole process too, to say that you can start anywhere and with anything, even if you have nothing. Yeah. And I was like, wow.
Love that.
Because it's about trusting him fully.
Yes, that is so true.
That's the key.
What would you say, Karen, from being, you're now being in the space of being an entrepreneur for 5, 6 years now? You said you're going in your second or third year is fully into this space. What would you have liked to know that you've learned over time as an entrepreneur, particularly in the food industry as a Black woman?
Definitely having resources that knowing about resources that are available to us, because I think if you're not surrounded by other, to be specific to your question, if you're not surrounded by other African American women that are walking this thing along with you, whether they're starting in the middle or have gotten to a successful place, you're kind of in the ocean, just trying to find your way, and you're looking around. There's so much. There's the vastness of what is out there for you is just, it's overwhelming sometimes. And you want or seek direction, so that way you don't go this way, that way, and waste a lot of time trying so many different things, where you can have a path catered to you based on where you are, what you're trying to do, what kind of business you're trying to run, and go as and have a clear enough path that you're not wasting time making mistakes here or whatever, even though they're going to happen. But I think having knowing people, or allowing God to bring people to you that have knowledge, that is willing to share that or have resources that you can tap into, in order to help you build and help you start a business and help direct you on your mindset. How are you supposed to be thinking? How are you supposed to plan? All of that good stuff. That's something that I wish I had at the very beginning, because of course when I started, it was kind of just, I don't want to say a whim, but it just came out of nowhere from me, from my standpoint. God already knew, and like, Terrian said, had already been preparing me from the very beginning with the different experiences that I've had to get me to this point. And so, but from my standpoint, I'm like, look, I did not anticipate this at all. So when I started, I didn't have much direction. Google is your friend. YouTube is my friend, just different things that I would just sit down and just kind of look through and see what is out there. But having a core group of people that you can trust and that will reach out to you and, or whatever, that's beneficial. But of course, we know that that's not always, something that's available at the time when people start. The other thing would be finances, of course, is huge. People tell you don't start a business until you have this and this and this. I say, yeah, I wish I would have started that way. I know I always tell people my story is unique to me. That's not how God wanted me to start. Not to say that that's not, correct or whatever, but it's more favorable when you're more prepared. However, if you're on God's timing, God don't work that way.
Yeah.
He doesn't work with what we consider our, circumstances to be perfect or to be in a better place, because ultimately he wants to be involved. It's his will for us. He wants to be involved. He wants to be a part. And he is one of the main officers of my business. He's the top head honcho. I'm just the chief operator, but he's the one that's over it and willed it for me. So, there has to be some level of trust in him to provide a lot of the things that I didn't have. Yeah. And so that whole process, for me, I'm glad it happened that way. But of course, if I'm encouraging other people, I said, just if you are a believer in God, you have to trust his timing. It's never going to happen on ours. It will always happen on his if you allow it.
Yeah.
So,
I love that. I love that. You're so vocal about just your faith and that God is the one that's running all of this. I'm sorry, Yana, were you about to say something? Oh, okay. We got amen over here. And just kind of speaking of timing, and for all of us right now, we are all in this thing together right now as we're going through the pandemic, and our lives have been like literally put on a halt, and we're living this new normal. And so, my question for you is, as a small business owner and fairly, you're still pretty new in this. You've been doing this for a couple of years, but things are still fairly fresh for you. Yes. How has this pandemic affected your business, if at all?
Well, definitely it has. Just like everybody else, I can say one. It has affected my business just because cake in a lot of respects is not an essential item. But God has given me peace about the fact. I know. Here's the B side of that.
Oh,
here's the B side of that.
I'm sorry. What?
Because this is how my first impression was when this happened. To kind of look the whole situation in its face, is that ain't nobody thinking about cake right now. That's how I'm seeing it. When it first started developing and stuff like that, like, wait a minute, like people are fighting over toilet paper. They're not fighting over cake. They fighting over, trying to get into the grocery stores and buy up everything, but they're not worried about, ordering a cake from me. Nobody's in the
cake.
I know. So,
yeah.
I'm thinking, what, people are not thinking about celebrating anything. This is my thought process when stuff really started developing, because I wasn't really trying to ignore it, but I wasn't trying to be consumed to be worried and frantic about what was going to happen or how the business was going to run, until it really got to where now people are, definitely, if not required, definitely strongly recommending to stay at home. Nobody's, prompted to go anywhere, with businesses closing down and stuff, malls being closed, like general areas are being closed, that people are being forced to stay at home. It's like, there's nowhere to go, unless you just walk outside. So, for me, my thought process was, I had to think, am I essential or am I not? Like, I had to honestly ask that question for myself. And so every time an update came about as far as what they considered essential and what not, I had to look at the fine print and be like, where do I fall?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm a small business. I'm not a storefront. I don't have a brick and mortar. Fortunately for me, that is the case because there's a lot of those that are small businesses that did have brick and mortar that are closed and may not be able to open.
Yeah.
With everything going on, me doing it as a home-based business, I have some leeway with that. But however, people have to buy in order for me to survive. And with me being a full-time entrepreneur, that is my income. So, I really had to pray. And, like I said, I'm thankful that I serve a God that I do, just because my temperament and my mental state could be very different at this point. And, fear has not set in. I'm thankful for my faith, just because, I've seen too. And I think that goes along with me starting the business how I did, because I had to fully trust God from the very beginning. I had no choice. And so with that being said, it has helped me over time to trust him in things that I didn't even anticipate happening. So every time a challenge comes, I'm already predestined to trust him. But it is always a level of trust that you can still go, towards, you know what I'm saying? Even though I say I fully trust him, there could be a situation where it will rock me to my core and I still have to be tested. Am I still going to trust God in this?
Yes.
Based on what I see. And that's the situation here. I have to trust God that this is still his business. This is still his will for me. So just because we're in a pandemic doesn't mean that God has left me, that he will stop providing for me or stop the business from growing. And I tell people, I said, sometimes I think it's just his way of sitting me down so I could do the things I'm supposed to do. And I know that's the truth, because there's a lot of things, like I said before, that I'm still trying to lay that foundation to make sure that, as things are built, as God leads me to grow, that certain things are already in place. And so when it comes to finances, God has been totally faithful. I do have little side gigs I do here and there. They are still fall in the essential category. So I do have some level of finances coming in. God has also been faithful. I actually do, have people that still order here and there, so the business is still running. I'm still doing what I can, to stay essential, in the sense of how they're terming it. And also God has placed some awesome parents in my life that fully support me, and have been my backbone since I started. Because I know that if God hadn't placed them there, this business would not be here today. I'm thankful, and my only encouragement to people right now in this pandemic, especially for small business owners or entrepreneurs in general, if you don't have something that you're putting your faith and hope in, you better start now. Because there are things outside our control that we would never be able to be prepared for. And only God can see us through it. So, but yeah.
Well, I was just thinking when God willing, when this thing is, when we're free and clear, when we're given the green light to go, I can only imagine like how business is going to like explode for you. Because people are going to want to be celebrating just to be, you know what I'm saying? Just be like, we can actually get together, be around people, celebrate all the things that maybe we didn't get a chance to celebrate while we were, practicing, quarantine or social distancing and all those things. And just thinking of like all the orders that are going to come in for you, like,
my God,
crazy once this thing, blows over, God willing, and it's all in his perfect timing. And I just love how you keep your faith so strong and steady, no matter what. I love that. That's so great.
Awesome. Thank you. And I received that. Ooh, yes. Ooh, yes.
So as we get ready to wrap, this has been such just your whole story, Karen. We appreciate you just being so transparent and open and taking us along the whole journey and sharing the fullness of how you got to here. But as we get ready to close, because I know the people want to know, like, how, like, okay, so what is, first of all, we shared a little bit about some of your top flavors, which is the red velvet cheesecake you made from a mother-in-law. Actually, the bottom was a red velvet. The top was it your strawberry shortcake, or was it a regular strawberry?
It's the same. Well, the cake part is the same recipe that I use for the crazy strawberry, but of course we kept
Oh,
it just the cake
I didn't
part.
even
So
get the
yeah,
fullness
that's
of
what
it,
that
and
was.
that one was off the chain. No, I'm serious. That cake was the first one to go. People were licking the plate. It's like, and she put fresh strawberries in it too.
Wow.
I did.
Girl.
I sure do. The cake is made with fresh strawberries because I make a strawberry puree. But I usually, like, when I build that, because yours was just minus the cheesecake layer. And I think I did put some of the crumbles on the outside, I think, on that one. So you got a little taste of the combination of that. But I always put fresh strawberries in between the layers as well, because I love fresh fruit.
I'm just letting y'all know. Jesus himself taste test her cakes before she delivers.
I believe it. I believe it.
But I'm sorry. So let me get back to my question. I ain't even get to my question. I just had like, I'm sorry, when we talk food and particularly your cake right now, in this quarantine season, just know you are essential. I just want to let you know.
Say it again.
You are essential. But no, so what is your top seller, and also what's your personal favorite?
Ooh, okay. For a while, the red velvet cheesecake was my top seller. Not just because it was the first one to start, but just like you say, when people tried it, they were like, OMG. So that was like the main one that was always selling, especially like the first year when I started. The second year of me starting the business, somebody had tagged me in the picture for the strawberry shortcake cheesecake I do, which is the one with the crumbles on the outside. So with that going viral on Facebook, it was just a random picture of somebody else's picture, and they tagged me in it. So when I did it for a friend of mine for her birthday, which I caused a feud between two ladies, because the first person, they're both friends of mine. So the one friend asked me to make it for her birthday, but her birthday wasn't until the end of May. Well, the mutual friend, her birthday is actually coming up this week, is at the beginning of April. And so crazy me decided to try and make the cake, because I hadn't made it yet, although I was planning to. I made a smaller version of it. I usually do a 6-inch size if requested. If you don't like a lot of cake, I'll do a 6-inch size. And actually, that's what's on sale right now for $25. The crazy strawberry shortcake cheesecake, I made a small version for the friend that's birthday was in April. And same friend that blasted the slice of red velvet cheesecake put a picture of the strawberry shortcake cheesecake I made her for her birthday. And I caused a feud between the two ladies, because she was like, oh my God, you were supposed to make that cake for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, where did I just start? So again, that cake, her post about this crazy strawberry shortcake went viral. And so for that year, that became the top seller because everybody wanted it. And so usually it's between those two that are really like my top sellers. With everything else that I have on the menu, I probably make those the most. So I make sure I have strawberries in house and red food coloring. Those are like the two main staples I must have, because if I'm not making red velvet cheesecake, I'm making the strawberry. So that's what I would have to have. Now, as far as my ultimate favorite, I would probably have to say the red velvet cheesecake is my ultimate favorite, just because it has two favorites of mine put together. I already told y'all my ultimate favorite dessert is cheesecake. But then you put that together with a red velvet cake. Oh my God. It is by far my favorite. So that's what I would say.
I'm still thinking about this. I know people are like, this girl is just overdoing it. But no, you guys, that cake was amazing. And um, oh gosh, yes. I'm just okay. Do you have for the people right now? If we're in need, and we're going to be, we found out we're in quarantine a little bit longer. Um, do you have a quarantine care package that you?
I'm actually working. I'm trying to put one together. I did a live video about a week ago, and I mentioned it. I just need to go full forward with it. So one side of it was because I already have the crazy strawberry shortcake cheesecake, a 6-inch size on sale, and I've had it on sale for most of the month. I'm going to probably add some of the other signature cakes that I have added to that list. And probably run it through this quarantine season. So that's one side of it. But then I was like, but there's a lot of families, like with kids and everything, that are stuck at home. And I've been wanting to kind of add something to the business when it comes to, I guess, kind of like a catering aspect. So I've been trying to work on doing platters of like bite-sized type desserts. I usually do it for like samples or if somebody wants a variety of different things. So I've done platters before, but I haven't fully advertised it. And so I wanted to put something together like a family pack of some kind of just a variety of different things in a platter setting. So I'm going to probably be rolling that out this week and run it through like to the end of April, since that's quarantine thing has been extended. So I'm probably going to, not probably, I will be offering that. I just have to work with my my website lady, my friend that does and manages my website, so we can start posting that up and have the pricing and everything. Because I had to work through all of that, trying to figure out, where people are right now as far as, financial and stuff like that. But, provide something that is economical and fair and all that good stuff. And so, so that's what I'm working on this week. And that should be up by the end of this week and be available. So definitely take a look out for that. I'm trying to make sure people go to the website, because a lot of things that I try to post, I post there first. Because I'm trying to limit my social media presence, not presence in general, but just me being on it. Because I had to back off because I spend a lot of time there and it's a distraction for me. So I've got stuff to do and I got to stay off it. So I try to plan when I'm on it. I know people message and communicate that way. But that's why I try to push the website, and, you can reach me by phone number, text or call. That's probably the fastest way to get me. Because I try not to pay too much attention to the notifications, because I'll be on social media all day.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. And just two things. I'm glad that you mentioned that your other. I know we've been talking about your cakes, but you do other things too, from cookies to other treats to cake balls, to all kinds of different things. So I don't want to just make you just seem like you just bake cakes. She do it all. She can bake pies.
Oh yeah, I try to be a one-stop shop if I can, because people I pay attention to what people order. So if you look at, if you're trying to do, people are celebrating differently too nowadays. Like birthdays are becoming a big, huge production. Not to say that in a negative way, but there's a lot to it now. Like people are renting out event spaces and inviting tons of people and having spreads and all of that good stuff, which I think is awesome because it's worth celebrating. But from a dessert standpoint, it's changed the game. Like you're doing, tiered cakes now for birthdays. I'm like, I'm all for it. Whatever y'all want, I don't care. Or adding tidbits like cake balls and cake pops and, just having themes and that kind of stuff. So I try to make sure that I know how to do a little bit of everything, just so that way you don't have to have 4 or 5 different businesses that you're reaching out to. Not that that's a bad thing. Everybody needs business. But if it's helpful to have one person that you can get a lot of that stuff from, it just limits the stress involved, and you have everything taken care of and that good stuff. So
the other thing I was going to add too, excuse me, is that you also deliver. So are you still doing?
I sure do.
Not now, especially right now.
That's actually all I have offered. Since the very beginning, I've always offered delivery service. So I don't have pickup service available just because I'm home based. And so I've always delivered. So I just had to remind people, I'm like, remember, we do have delivery service. And so I actually waived the delivery fee for now until further notice. I was starting off with 2 weeks, but since this quarantine thing has been extended, I'm going to probably still continue to waive that until this thing is over. So I do deliver. And I had to let people know, just to reassure, because my side gigs involve delivering as well. So I am equipped with the tools, to make sure that I keep myself safe as well as my customers and people I come in contact with. So I do have sanitizer. I do have gloves. I actually got with a vendor friend of mine who is making masks. So I will have my own personal mask as well. And just to make sure that I'm doing my part, just because, it makes no sense to be out here if you're not trying to be careful and cautious and just mindful that, people want to stay safe and away from this virus. And I do too,
No,
trust
we need
me.
these cakes.
I don't want to be sick. I'm not prone to being sick either. So yes. So as I tell people, as long as I am well, I tell them, if I'm under the weather, I will shut down in a minute, because I come from a healthcare background as well. So I take it very seriously. I care about people's lives sometimes more than my own. So, but I have to have balance.
Yeah.
I have to care for myself so I can care for others. So I have delivery service available for the quarantine period. That delivery fee will be waived. And then I'll have certain things, because now that people are maybe reaching out or whatever, I wanted to make it easy for people to try different things as well. That's why I want to do the family packs, which will be a platter of a variety of different flavors of cake or cake balls and cookies and stuff like that. And then you can get a 6-inch of, I'll probably have to come up with a list based on how I can get materials and stuff like that. So certain things may not be available just because of availability, but most of my menu is available at this time. So I think the only thing, anything dealing with fresh fruit is going to be on a case-by-case basis. So other than that, I just want to make sure people have what they want, because I know that I had a farmer's market this past Saturday, and I realized that I actually did pretty good in sales just because people, I think, have or feel a sense of normalcy when they can have cake.
Which is why you're essential.
Essential, right? Trust me, that's what got me to realize that.
Especially right here in Dallas. I don't know about other states, but here in Texas, they made it to where you can now get alcohol delivered to you. So if that is essential, then I'm pretty sure we can throw cake in that category.
Cake. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And I was gonna say also, yes, that for our listeners who don't know, she does deliver, but you have to be in the DFW area, correct?
Yes,
okay.
Just the DFW area.
Sorry, everybody else.
People ask me all the time, so I say DFW area, and I mean that. Wow. Like I'll go as far as Fort Worth, which I have a few customers out that way. I'm going as far as Mesquite and, DeSoto, all on that side, Dallas, anywhere my car will take me. Usually I think the max mileage originally is 50 miles.
Okey-doke.
I do have to cut off at 50 miles, but that covers a lot of area. So I'm here for you.
Yay for us here in the DFW area. Sorry to everybody else. Sorry to this one.
Oh goodness.
All righty. Well, Karen, this has been awesome. We actually had so many other questions, but we want to be respectful of everyone's time at this moment. We've got children that are in school that are in the other room that I'm about to tear the children up because they have to make a noise and they know I'm in here recording. But anyway, we're going to have to edit that out. But anyway, we appreciate you so much. But before we go, we do have a couple of closing questions for you. So my first question for you, we always ask our guests, what is their power word for 2020 and why? And so if you have one, would you mind sharing that with us?
Oh, a power word.
Yes.
The one I entered 2020 with was magnetized.
Mm.
I was listening to a Smokey Norfolk sermon on his YouTube channel, and the lesson had to deal with how God, when he sends out his word or a message or his truth, it always comes back to him. And just something about that message had to do with how I've been interacting with folks and just how God is drawing people to him. And the only way he can do that is through the person he's using.
Yeah.
And so it encouraged me to just keep doing what I'm doing and seeking God and knowing how to handle each day and with the people that I come in contact with. And so with that word magnetize is, he's bringing people in my direction or to me for any given purpose, whether it's to speak a word, encourage, help, or whatever. I look at all of that because everybody that he's brought to me or in my circle or just in my presence, there's always been a purpose for it. So I keep that in mind. There was a second word.
Okay.
It slipped me, but I can't think of it at the time. But I think it had to do with elevation, like something, going higher.
Yeah.
So he's been just preparing me to go to another level. I just have to be obedient and do the things I need to do to be prepared for that. Because Tyrion touched on it as far as, when this pandemic lifts up and releases, God has things in store that he's going to open up and we have to be ready for it.
Yeah.
And so I truly believe it and receive that. So those were the two things.
Magnetize and elevate. Let's go.
All right. So Karen, are there any works or any special things in store for 2020 for you in Labor of Love?
Let's see. Just a few things I've been praying for this year. One, I really want to get into doing more on the catering side, just because I've been working a lot with some of my customers that work for businesses and companies that are, plan different things. So that's one avenue I want to get into. To be able to provide desserts and even doing dessert tables and stuff like that. And then also just praying about building a side of the business that deals with weddings. I've always had the desire to do wedding cakes ever since I was a kid. Even tried to take classes and still do. I have courses that I'm working through to perfect the decorating part of it, dealing with fondant and stuff like that. So I'm just praying about how that's going to come about. And then the other thing, there's three things, in trying to stay mobile. I am praying and looking at financially how to get into a food truck, just because I sense that that's the direction I want to go in, because I don't want or have the desire to do a brick and mortar. I never have and probably never will. And with me being a bakery, it's hard for brick and mortar bakeries to stay in business. Not to say that we're not essential, but, unless the demand is there, brick and mortar bakeries are not the thing these days like they were back in the day.
Yeah.
So, and I love to move around. I like to be mobile. Like I want to be that truck that has that sound. Cake is in your neighborhood. Come on and get your cake.
Like
so
ice cream.
I already see it. And even I have a vision board that I put on my refrigerator. And in the middle of the picture is this food truck situation set up that I found in a magazine. I'm like, that's it. That's my truck. So that's just something I'm praying about as far as how that's going to come about. So those are the three things that I'm working on this year.
Let me get my cash for Caring Fund together, so when that truck rolls through, I can just
Right. Right. I don't think I've ever heard of a food truck that was just cakes,
right,
with a bakery on. Boy, are you on this?
There's actually a few that I've come across that God has shown me as examples. But usually it's like cupcakes or something like that. I actually have not seen one with actual, I do Bundt cakes.
Yeah.
Bundt cake size, or I'll do, I do cupcakes too, but I do a little bit of everything, that are individual size, like when I do markets and stuff. So I just see that being possible, doing it in a truck fashion. So I can do festivals. I can show up anywhere, as long as I have all the documents to say I can pull up. So
yes,
I'm excited for that
I
opportunity.
see it.
I'm
I
looking
see
forward
it.
to it.
Well, man,
Well, when we
good
get this
job.
Melanated
I love it.
Conversations live event together, we're definitely going to need you on location.
We
Yeah.
need you to pull up. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. Definitely.
Please, please, please.
Yeah.
Okay, so for real, this is our final question.
Maybe.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe. So, Karen, could you just share with our listeners how we can connect with you?
All right. So where I really want folks to be able to go to freely is the website. Myself and my website manager, Ms. Erica McIntyre, she is an awesome person and so creative. She actually was the one who built my website. And we just coordinate together on building it and knowing what we want to put on there for people to be able to see what we offer and what we're about. So definitely the website, and that's www.laboroflovebaking.com. I know it's a little different than the name of the business. It was because the name of the business is already taken. So I had to kind of switch it up, and I'm okay with that. So you can definitely go there. I know you ladies have been there already and seen everything, and we're still working on making it user-friendly where people can order. And so people can submit orders online. There is a order tab, or you can go and check out the sales tab. Every now and again, we'll have different sales that are running and an option to order those things. And so you can submit a form to order. And Terrian, like whenever you're ready, if you have a specific cake for one of your kids' birthdays coming up and you have a theme or pictures, there's an option to upload. And give a description of the type of cake that you want, size, and all of that. And we'll go through getting a price quote, for whatever you would like to order and that kind of stuff. We'll go and get that figured out. So there's different ways and information on the website for everybody. And then I'm also available on social media. I am on Facebook. The business page is, of course, facebook.com. I guess is it forward? I think it's / Labor of Love Bakery.
Okay.
That's the link for Facebook. Instagram, my handle is at LOL_Labor of Love Bakery. And I try to post in both places. I always post a schedule of where I'm at. Even though we are in quarantine season, there are certain things I'm still able to do. The only thing right now that I have that I do consistently is a farmer's market. The organized market that I do on a regular basis is still able to open up on Saturdays and Sundays at the Willow Bend Mall here in Carrollton / Plano, Texas area. We're available on Saturday from 9 to 2. Saturdays is the only day that I do consistently. I try not to do business on Sundays. I'm actually closed on Sundays. But if you're out and about and you need essential things, there are usually there's a produce vendor out there. There's other food vendors like beef jerky. There's usually a honey vendor out there. There is the Salsa Texan. They do tortilla chips, different dips and salsas. They also do tamales and stuff like that. So there's different vendors that come out that may have some things you need. We also have a hand and body vendor. There's usually 1 or 2 out there that have soaps, lotions, shampoos, and stuff like that. So if you need those types of essentials, there's usually a vendor for that as well. It is an outdoor open air market. That is what's keeping us being able to open. We're not enclosed. It is an open market. Outdoor. And on Sundays, if you're out on Sundays, it is still at the same place at Willow Bend Mall from 11 to 4. So Saturdays 9 to 2, Sunday 11 to 4. But Labor of Love Bakery is only there on Saturdays.
Is there, by chance, any tissue vendors out there?
No, actually, that would be nice, but no, there are not. Oh,
Still on
mercy.
hunt. Are y'all? You can't find it anywhere?
Actually, right at this second of this call, my husband just texted me saying he's about to go on a hunt for some. So we have like a couple
So
rows
you
to get us
gotta,
through,
yeah.
but I don't want to run out.
Instead of Easter egg hunting this year, we're gonna be hunting for toilet tissue.
Toilet paper, right? Exactly. Isn't that something? I tell
Crazy
you.
times we're in. I noticed that eggs are kind of low too. So is that affecting you just by chance?
Not at the moment. I get my supply from a restaurant supply store, so it's not open to the public. So for right now, eggs are accessible to me. Certain grocery stores actually, the eggs that I particularly, or the brand that I particularly buy, is in large quantities. So in the beginning, it wasn't one that was flying off the shelf, because if you're buying for personal, you're not going to buy that many eggs at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as they're in a bulk package, normally I can still get them. But yeah, I have a restaurant supply store that I'm able to get my eggs from if needed. Walmart's been pretty good with having the size boxes that I like to get, because I don't have that much refrigerator space. So buying them in bulk is not always wise for me, just for space concerns. But right now, there isn't too many things that I'm not able to get because of that. There are certain things that I usually get at a local regular grocery store that may start getting harder to get, which is like the fruits and stuff like that I use for certain cakes. Like with the strawberry shortcake cheesecake, I usually garnish with chocolate chocolate covered strawberries. I may have to X that out just because it's harder to get fresh strawberries. My produce people don't come out all the time that I usually buy my strawberries from. So unless I can get it, it'll have it on there. But most likely I'll have to X that part of it out. But other than that, I haven't run into a shortage of anything that I normally need. So that's a good thing.
Thankful for that. We speak abundance.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Karen. We definitely really appreciate you sharing your story and sharing your gift.
Thank you.
Walking into that.
Yes.
I was excited for the opportunity. I'd never done anything like this before. So I figured, let me try something new. I'm not ashamed of sharing my story. So I'm glad to do it.
Well, that's what we're all about. Yeah.
No,
sorry, go ahead.
I just want to, again, like I said, just thank you. And, here on the show, this is our mission, is always to amplify the voices of Black women, to share their stories, celebrate our successes in sharing our lessons. And we've done that. You guys, just because we are quote unquote stuck in the house does not mean that you can still enjoy the great joys in life, which are the sweet treats.
Yes.
And I encourage all my people here in the DFW area to support Karen in Labor of Love Bakery. She is open for business. And just check out her website. We'll have everything linked into our show notes, so you can go there. And, if you're feeling really generous, send a treat to a friend.
Right.
Yeah.
A cake gram or something.
And if you don't have one,
exactly.
And if you don't have one, just send us a note and we can send your address where you can send Karen.
Right. Not a problem.
Exactly. Exactly.
We'll be your friend.
I actually had somebody do that. They hit me up on Instagram. A young lady hit me up and asked me if I can make a certain cake. And I said, yeah, I can do that. She actually ordered it for her brother, whose birthday was recently. And he actually stays here in Dallas and couldn't leave or go home for his birthday, I guess is what they normally do. And so she ordered a cake for him to be delivered to him. So I was like, see, that's what that's about.
Yes.
I love that. I so love that. So yeah, definitely. If you even want to order for anybody, as long as I deliver, I can get it to them. So good deal.
Don't miss your blessing.
Yeah.
Okay. That's right.
Don't be blocking other people's blessings. Send somebody.
That's true.
Cake, okay.
Send somebody a cake. Yes. We'll work it out. Trust me.
Karen's got a blessing.
Right?
Oh,
I love it.
all right,
I
we're
love
about to
it.
go for it, guys. Thanks so much, as always, for tuning in and hanging out with us. We enjoy Terry and I love what we do. If you can't tell, we really love
Yes.
and really stand by our vision
Awesome.
and really amplifying us. So we thank you for being a part of this. Um, and
Yeah.
Thank you.
I guess that's it. Do you have anything else, Terry, before we go? Last word.
No, just thank you. It was such a pleasure meeting you, Karen. Thank you so much for sharing
Yes,
your story.
absolutely.
We are just so excited for you and all the things that are coming your way.
Hmm.
And I will definitely be supporting here in couple of seconds. So
Okay.
hop on their website as soon as we get done with this. But no, just thank you so much. It was an honor and a pleasure. Can't wait to officially meet you in person, and
Yes.
can't wait to taste some cake.
Awesome. Awesome. And I just wanted to quickly add the phone number for the business is 469-546-9285. You can call and text at that number. So if anybody needs to order anything, you can definitely reach me there. The website, like I said, is available. There's a form on the order tab or even on the sales tab that you can click on, a Google form, and you can just fill it out and send it in, and I'll get back to you within 24 hours of receiving it. And just, it was my honor to actually do this interview. I was so excited, and I'm excited about what you ladies are doing. I think it's definitely needed and encouraging to even hear, just, people that are going and walking through this thing to be able to share what we've been tasked with and challenged with, and hopefully it'll help and impact other people as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Well, you guys, we're gonna wrap there, and until then, Lene.
Thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed our chat today. Keep the conversation going by heading to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leaving us a review.
Have a story of your own to share? Email us at info@melanatedconversations.com or connect with us on social media at Melanated Conversations. Till next time, keep raising your voice.